Well, it's time to talk about some of the big issues facing the world at the moment with, one of the best social commentators in the business from thebigsmoke.com, Alex Tselios. G'day, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
Very, very well. Some interesting topics today. It's the 5th of November, so it's starting to look a lot like Festivus, or Christmas, as it were. Christmas music is going to start hitting the shops and even the radio stations soon. Is too much Christmas music harmful for us?
Are you a Christmas music fan?
Well, yeah, some Christmas music. I hate that Mariah Carey song, but I love Chris Rea's Driving Home for Christmas.
My favourite Christmas song is Queen's Thank God It's Christmas.
Oh, great song, yeah.
That's my ultimate. So I'm a big fan of Christmas music. So research like this is really depressing for someone like me because the whole idea around it is that we're too exposed to Christmas music certain times of the year. And for some people, that response actually links to annoyance, stress, and eventually anger. And it's particularly bad for people who work in retail. And if they're triggered in this way, can you imagine how stressed they're going to be trying to serve customers? So it's this whole idea that, we tend to be overexposed to certain sounds. It's kind of like when you hear the alarm of your phone in the morning.
Yep.
And maybe the first few times you chose a song that would wake you up and get you in a good mood, but after a while, you end up hating that song.
Yeah, okay. So it's more about the repetition than the actual Christmas music itself.
Did you know that looped music is a form of torture?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, I did.
And so you can imagine, therefore, some people respond to that sound and it actually triggers them a little bit to get irritated and frustrated instead of feeling happy and pleasant that they're listening to Christmas music. But the juxtaposition, of course, around all of this is that there is also research that decorating for Christmas early can make you happier.
Yeah, okay. See, I don't know how anybody can be depressed by Christmas.
Well, some people hate Christmas. And also, to be serious, some people link Christmas with bad memories, family issues.
Yeah.
So for some people, it's not a great time of year. And if you're somebody who's had a number of bad situations happen around Christmas or you've lost family, sometimes it's not even the looped music that's going to trigger you. It's actually the nostalgia or the trigger of bad memories.
What it represents, so to speak. Well, I'm going to put the call out there, 132710. Tell us what your favourite Christmas songs are, or are you one of these people that hates Christmas music? Speaking of torture, remember that show Mully Grubs?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that was torture. Putting kids in front of the television while that was on, I reckon, was torture.
Right, okay.
No, that's just me. Moving right along, look, I don't want to know when I'm going to die. In fact, I don't go to the doctor just in case they tell me something's wrong. I know I shouldn't do that. But apparently our lifespan is written into our DNA.
Yeah. Are you one of those people that Googles your symptoms, though?
No.
Oh, okay. So I Google and I go, okay, it doesn't seem that bad. So I probably can get away with not going to the doctor for a while longer. But the whole idea is that our DNA code tells us a lot about us as humans, and it tells our stories. So it's a little bit separate from genetics. And the idea is that our activity of the DNA, not the DNA sequence itself, but what they call epigenetic changes, can actually give doctors an idea as to not the day and time you're going to die, but it signals how your body responds to aging. And then, of course, the medical issues that arise with the aging process. So they're able to somewhat predict mortality. And, there are certain diseases that are very common with aging, such as heart disease and cancer and Alzheimer's. And this theory or this clock, so to speak, that they've created can predict how long somebody will live and how much of that life will be free of those diseases. So it's not fortune telling and it's not an exact science. It's not perfect. But what we are learning is that our DNA does evolve over time, the activity of that DNA, not the sequence as I mentioned, and that can actually basically detect chemical changes that could indicate whether certain genes are turned on or off, and that can result in, doctors being able to make that assumption. But the interesting thing about this also, it's not just great for a person to know, because I actually would like to know when I will die. So if I was able to be given that information, I would value that. And I guess the argument has always been, do you not want to know when you're going to die because you don't want to have that looming over your head? Or do you want to know so you can live every day knowing how much time you have left to complete the things you want to complete? So there's that argument. But But insurance companies also benefit from this sort of data, and platforms like Ancestry.com also uses DNA information to make assumptions, and so it is going to become quite scary how much information we're going to know about ourselves based on our DNA.
See, I don't need a DNA test. I'm 44 and I feel like I'm 64, so the test wouldn't matter to me.
Well, I mean, yeah, the interesting thing probably also, like you said, you don't want to know anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
For you probably would feel more stressed out knowing there's a TikTok happening above you that I don't know.
Live every day like it's your last, Alex. Hey,
motivational.
Everybody knows how I vote. My political beliefs are not a secret, but a lot of people like to keep theirs quite under wraps. Tell us about this new app in the US.
So this is interesting because never before have we seen such, transparency into how people feel politically. 15, 20 years ago when you'd have dinner, you would never talk about politics. It was unheard of. And now it's quite normal. I know pretty much every single person I went to primary school's voting preference because they're all talking and sharing articles on Facebook, and you just know more. So this app in the US has actually been created, and what it does is it collects all the information around how you voted. It's all publicly available information, and it can tell whether or not you missed an election, for example, when you changed who you voted for, and that data over time is able to be used. And the idea is that you're able to determine whether or not somebody agrees with you, and these voting records are now public for the first time. So it can make dinner conversation very awkward. Yeah,
see, it's very polarising. I think, the fact that once upon a time you could have friends that had different views to you, now it seems to be if someone disagrees with you, you've got to hate them, and I don't get that.
No, I don't get that either. I think that there's a real loss in the art of debate when it comes to politics, because there is always the sense that I'm not trying to have a conversation with you to tell you where I stand on an issue. I'm trying to have a conversation with you to tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the crux of the issue. So, but also in America, it's different to Australia in the sense that everybody's party registration and voting history can be a matter of public record. In Australia, we don't really register as a Liberal voter or a Labor voter,
that's right.
We vote at the polls. So it is really different. But why I find this interesting, though, is I think there is also a sense of shame at times with how you actually voted. And for families who maybe pretend to be more liberal or a little bit more conservative than they actually are, this information could be a bit of a game changer at the Christmas dinner table.
Well, I know that you live in the seat of Wentworth, so I won't put you on the spot here on air.
Well, you know what? I think most Liberal voters in the seat of Wentworth actually went for Karen Phelps.
Well, it would appear so.
For a number of reasons. So I think that again, but could you imagine if everybody was a registered voter for a particular party, it becomes a lot more complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it certainly it would tell the parties where they went wrong. Hey, what I want to know, talking about going wrong, why are only half of all serious injuries on our roads reported?
Well, the inaccurate data around this is really about people not reporting their crash to the police. So, for example, they've had a car accident, somebody's been hurt, they've lied about their name and address because they don't want to have issues with insurance. There are a number of reasons why, but it's actually not an insignificant amount because it's only 55% between 2005 and 2015 where the data is actually matched to police records.
That's extraordinary.
So there's a large amount. Now, often that's perhaps single vehicle crashes. So, you've run into a pole, minor incidences. But the biggest issue around all of that is that it's about cyclists, because according to the researchers, they believe that it is almost 80% of incidents involving cyclists are actually unaccounted for.
Wow.
So it's really about first of all, how can you make an assumption that's right for your state if you don't have accurate data? So when you consider the amount of money that's put into the decision-making process around how the New South Wales government spends millions on the roads every year, how can they do that in a smart way when there is so much information that's missing. And also in Victoria earlier this year, it was discovered that some police had falsified more than 250,000 roadside breath tests over a 5-year period. And that was something that was uncovered during the Victoria's Transport Accident Commission. So this data is not insignificant in terms of the errors, and it's really about finding a way to have a cohesive database and a cohesive process in place where we have a little bit more transparency over the data, but it requires everybody being involved in that. You know, if you're not reporting things to the police and you're not being honest about what's happening, it's very difficult to track, and it does change and skew the statistics.
Another reason why we need to register cyclists.
I mean, that's for some people, that's absolutely one of the ways to move forward. Other people, for example, believe that there should be the inclusion of ambulance data.
Yeah, that's very good point. Yeah.
So there's different ways of trying to approach this and get to a better position.
Indeed. Alex, always fascinating talking to you. We'll catch up again next week.
Thank you so much.
Alex Tselios from the